Hi, and welcome to another interview on the Cliff's List YouTube channel. Today, my guest is Dr. Jessica, who is going to give us some insights into how she helps guys become much more successful with women. So, Dr. Jessica, maybe you can start off by telling people a little bit about who you are and what you do for those who aren't familiar with yourself.
Yep, absolutely. So I started my career as a scientist. I actually have a PhD in organic chemistry. I also studied neuroscience, and I wanted to be a professor. Um, so these days, I like to say I've always been studying bonding, whether it's molecular bonding or interpersonal bonding. Thank you for laughing. So my whole life changed when I hit a wall as a scientist. I was drinking too much and really stuck in my head and trying to figure everything out with my mind and suppressing my emotions. I had a lot of anxiety and like chronic fatigue symptoms. And one day, after going to Burning Man and realizing there was for 5 years in a row and realizing there was another way to live, I just kind of hit a wall. And I was standing there in lab, and I didn't even believe in this stuff, but it was like the voice of my heart broke through. And I was a highly analytical, very logical, like mind only person, but a voice broke through and said, "You're not supposed to be doing this anymore." And I thought about it for a while, and I went home, and I was married at the time and told my husband, "I think I need to change careers." So I actually left my academic career and went to travel for a year. And when I did that, I had the intention of doing things that scared me or doing things that I had always said no to before. So I tried all kinds of new things, mind expanding things, things that were too out there for me. I'm from West Texas originally. So, and I ended up spending over 4 years in different tantric spiritual communities in Asia. And it changed my whole life. For me, I think people have a lot of different ideas about what that word tantric means. And for me, it simply meant a different way of life where having emotions was not shameful, listening to the body was not shameful, and that becoming aware of my sexual energy was also not shameful, and that it was like living in the world with awareness that was the path. And I found this so empowering. I finally let myself do something that felt healthy. I stopped overworking. I stopped being stressed. I finally let myself do something that made me happy. And in the course of studying sexuality and relating, I I had an assignment that was to interview strangers about their sex lives. And, I'm just a nerdy academic scientist, so I had never done this before. But when I went out and started, just meeting people in the community where I lived and interviewing them about, hey, what's it like for you right now? What's your sex life like? What's going well? What's not? I loved it. And I found that the conversations went really deep, really fast. It felt so meaningful. And because I had been through, living in San Francisco for 10 years and doing all these different explorations in conscious sexuality communities in the Bay Area and also in the Tantra communities, I had this broad experience of what I had observed and felt, and I felt I could really hold space for people in a non-judgmental, non-shaming way. So from there, then I found my way to many different teachers over the years, studying trauma, relating, intimacy, personal development, and started my business. And today I am a passionate relationship coach for powerful men in tech, VCs, CEOs, men in finance. I really like working with men in STEM because I understand the, logical, analytical science mentality. And for me, it was a huge, huge, big deal to break out of that one way of thinking, of like very linear, very head only, and sort of denying the body and emotions to open to the other realm. It was like I was not even alive before, and now I'm living in Technicolor. And I like to hold out a hand for other people to do the same to make this shift.
Well, that's quite a story of transformation, it sounds like. Um,
Yes.
I obviously you mentioned that you were married at the time, so I gathered some of this discovery impacted your previous life in a very significant manner. Uh,
Yes. Well, my ex and I, we intentionally created a really unusual marriage from the start. But when we did get married, I still didn't have any awareness of my emotional world. And so a lot of what I was doing was acting out of fear and scarcity mentality. Even though there was a lot of love there, there were a lot of problems that I ignored because I didn't want to be alone or be single. And I felt family pressure to get married. And so eventually all that stuff just came to a head and we realized this actually doesn't work. So, we got divorced. And being divorced and coming again to dating in my 30s at the time, it was such a blessing because now I had all of this information, awareness of like attachment style communication patterns, personality disorders, and trauma, and also of my own tendencies to like not honor myself, to be a pleaser, all these things. And it was fascinating to come to dating as an adult, and wiser and more mature. And I had some incredible experiences.
well,
Yeah.
please tell us about some of those experiences, and and I guess I think everybody's going to be curious about that.
Oh, sure. Well, I want to really bring it home to, how can my life be of benefit to your listeners? Yeah, because it gets really esoteric really fast. The
Okay.
realms I explored. I mean, there is a whole other world of, taking conscious intimacy as a spiritual path, as a path of transformation, as a path of awakening, that is so different from what we've been sold in the West, from sex as shameful or only for procreation. And I find it quite revolutionary and empowering. But I think that your listeners are probably wanting to hear about, what are the main mistakes that I see men making in dating today. And, I see this over and over in my work, just some simple blind spots that you're not aware of that nobody ever teaches us. Nobody taught me, and I had to learn all this too. And I wonder if would you like to talk about that too?
Yes, I typically would more direct the conversation to how do you help guys become more successful, but definitely pointing out their blind spots is a part of that. So let's see what you had in mind about that. I think that would be very interesting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key things that I see over and over again in my work is that men are trying so hard. Like, I see that you really care and you really want to be able to give and receive love. You want to really understand what makes women happy. And I get it. It's really compelling to see a woman in bliss and pleasure, to see her all lit up and to know that you know how to make her happy, right? Yeah. So, there's a few ways that you can do this that just don't get talked about, at least in the mainstream. So I was raised, for example, to think that the only way to communicate was to be defensive or to give advice. And even I used to argue with my ex-husband, um, I have to be defensive. If I'm not defensive, someone's just going to walk all over me. It was that intense, right? The conditioning. And I've had my clients say to me that, okay, well, if I'm not giving advice or or explaining my actions or justifying myself or defending myself, then what other way is there to communicate? like just not aware that there is anything, any other way to be. And so here's the deal. It's a really simple shift. Whether you're on a date or you're already, in partnership and you want communication to go better, start to really take a look at when she brings something up to you that might be a little bit challenging, like, hey, I'm not really feeling this right now, or I'm feeling upset or anxious about this thing. Do you go right into explaining, oh, but if you just saw it the way I did, you wouldn't feel that way? Like, this is the norm of how people communicate today, and especially men. Are you guys aren't aware of this because nobody ever told you. And instead, all you have to do is say, tell me more about that. Tell me more. Yeah. Because when you go into explaining, she feels it's as if you didn't hear her. She feels like, oh my God, I can't get through. He didn't get it. He's not listening. And he's trying to tell me that I shouldn't be having the experience that I'm having. And that is a major, major source of disconnection in relating today.
Interesting. Um, and how do you, I guess, is it just a matter of pointing this out, or do you have to do more to get someone to adapt to a new behavior like that?
Yeah, so usually guys will say, oh, I don't do that. I listen really well. And so you need to come in for a session and have a third party say, oh, look, do you see right there? That was the thing. I don't think you realized that was the thing. And then it's such a habit that it's really helpful to have, again, a third person be there, like a coach, a therapist, and give you a structured way of having a conversation with a woman or with your partner, so that you practice over and over again, like catching yourself, and you practice. And it goes really deep, right? Because the reason you're explaining or justifying is probably because there's like a tight, hot, like feeling inside of your body. I know I get that when someone says they're upset and I'm like, wait, 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 you don't understand. Don't be upset, Like it's normal. And I have to use, this is where the tantric skills come in, of like body awareness, breath awareness, and being like, oh, okay, it's okay. I'm feeling that way. Breathe, let the energy disperse and dissipate, and then say, okay, I want to let this person feel heard. You're thinking that in your mind. So then you say, tell me more. Now, I'm not saying that it's never a good time to give advice. Like, I don't go to extremes in my work. There's no always or never. Sometimes advice is great. So sometimes you might want to say, what would feel supportive to you right now? And she may say, please give me all of your advice. You know, After many years of dating, I met the partner of my dreams, and doing all this personal growth work and transformation. And so we are together, and he's just fucking amazing. I have so much respect for him. It's incredible. It's just like, ah. Oh. And so sometimes he'll say, how can I support you around this? And, I'll be ranting about something, and I'll be like, actually, just tell me what to do. Just give me all your advice. But it feels so good to be asked.
What do you think was the key to you actually meeting this special person like that? Is it something that um, a man should know about in order to possibly find his dream girl?
Yeah, absolutely. And men ask me this all the time. So there's a few things. The first one is know exactly what you want. And, don't be afraid to have your standards, right? So know internally, like, I want this and I don't want these things. Like, know what your deal breakers are, and what your standards, your things that you really want are. I guess I should call that your desires and your deal breakers. And then the second thing is to ask yourself, a woman like that, what would she be wanting? What would she be looking for in a man? And think, do I have those qualities? So this is your chance to consider, like, am I worthy of my standards? And so you might need to do some personal growth work. You might need to take, like, a communications class or a class on some cool like or a dance class or something, get yourself a little bit healthier, clean up something in your life that you're not proud of, right? In order to be the kind of man that the woman you're desiring would want. And the third thing is, where is this kind of woman likely to hang out? And make sure you go to those places. I see a lot of men asking, where are all these conscious women who love sex and have good communication skills? All I meet are like manipulative, traumatized women who are like really unreliable. And I'm like, well, where are you hanging out? Right. And they say, well, I go to bars or, they're getting harassed by women asking them for money online or something like that. And I'm like, okay, you need to go out to a different kind of environment. A really fantastic way to attract awesome women is to become a respected member of a community. So, for example, my partner, before I met him, he's a computer nerd. He has a PhD from MIT in actually in neuroscience and artificial intelligence, and we founded an AI company together. That's a whole other story. And it was a big stretch for him, but he started going to ecstatic dance. And ecstatic dance is this dance community where you're sober, there's no talking on the dance floor, and you practice consent around whether or not you want to dance with someone else, and you're free to like make noise, to roll on the floor, to run around, to be weird. Like you're not trying to look good. It's just a place to like kind of have dance as a prayer. Anyway, it's a really beautiful community. I'm not saying that has to be yours or any of you listeners, but I'm just giving a specific example. Like think what could be yours. And he started going twice a week for months. And he did this for a couple of years, and he found a bunch of different dance partners. He went on dates with some of the women. He like went to the annual retreat, and he became known as this like awesome guy that a lot of women respected. And so when I met him, I also liked ecstatic dance. And I was like, oh, and then I could ask the other women in the community, what about him? What do you think of him? And he had even been dating one of my colleagues, and they just weren't a match because one of them wanted more children and the other one didn't want any more children, right? So they just amicably stopped dating after a while. And I asked her, like, so, how was it with him? And all I got were really, really glowing positive reviews. So that's a really good way to meet a high quality woman.
Sounds like it. So tell me how does it's usually start off with a new client when you have a guy that's coming to you for coaching or advice? Like how does it usually start? Like
Mm.
what do you find is the place that they is it something in common, or they're all come from a different place?
Well, a lot of men have been following me for years on Facebook, or they're in my free community, Passionate Relationships for Powerful Men. Other times, the women in their life have sent them an article that I wrote, or have sent them my TED Talk, which is called Chemistry for Your Sex Starved Marriage. And so I think it really helps that if you follow me for a while, you get to know me, you learn to trust me, you watch my videos, you read what I write, you sign up for my newsletter, that sort of thing. And then after a while, maybe I'll be offering a course or a special or something. I also do like month to month coaching. So if you want to just try it out for a month, you can always do that. And I have all of these extra programs that you can purchase as well, like Total Confidence in Bed for Men or Neo Tantra Fundamentals. Guys really love these programs. And so from that place of like learning to trust me, getting to know more about me, and honestly, a lot of men come to work with me because they're like, Jessica, you're a scientist. I don't trust anyone else in this Tantra field, but I know that you are grounded and smart and that you understand a man's logical mind. So, you know, like when I first started, because I also went to MIT, a lot of my colleagues, actually, my classmates from then, wanted to work with me exactly for that reason. They're like, I don't trust anyone else in this like conscious sexuality realm, but I trust you.
Well, that's a good place to be.
Yes. Yeah, and I really was trying to make it in a man's world for so long, like working in chemistry lab for 10 years. Um, I really had to cut myself off from my body and suppress my emotions and my body so that I would be respected. And also, if you're going to work 12 hours a day in lab 6 days a week for years on end, you have to cut off from your body's needs and your emotions. And I know that a lot of software programmers do that too. Like if you're going to sit there and code for hours, you have to disconnect, you have to numb yourself. And then, but that becomes a problem in relating.
Yes.
Yeah, because really what women are wanting today, I mean, there's all different kinds. There's different communities of women throughout the world. Of course, there are women who are more superficial, who are just looking for, abs and riches, but you don't want to wake up next to a woman like that every day. Like, how are you going to have deep conversations? What are you going to talk about at the dinner table for the next 30 years, right? How are you going to share your vulnerabilities with her and be respected? You can't. So, but if you want like a woman who really truly meets you deeply on every level, like sexually, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, you need to be connected to your body. You need to respect your body's signals. You need to take care of your body. You need to have like all of your wisdom centers online. Like in Tantra, there's three main wisdom centers. There's the third eye, the heart, and the lower belly slash sexual center, right? So it's like the gut, it's like your desire and your gut and your heart and your brain. And today, especially for men, we're operating up here and the energy gets up here and it gets really fast and it gets really contracted. And then women are like, like, oh, scary. He can't feel me. But when you bring it down and you ground into the earth, like, do you feel the difference in my energy and my presence and how I'm talking? And it's also like pleasurable when you're like connected to your senses and to the earth and to like that, ooh, that centered power of who you are as a man. It's so yummy. And for me to see that as a woman, I'm like, give me more of that. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know
The
if I answered your question. I think I went off on a tangent there.
That's okay. That's okay. Um,
All right.
I guess I like to find out how you coach guys, for the variety of challenges that they probably come to you with. I'm not really sure if you have you seem to have a niche of powerful men, of people in the tech industry,
Mhm.
and I guess I have a big image of that of a lot of these tech guys being socially undeveloped. They spent all their time playing video games and programming, and they're very
Yeah.
they wake up one day and they're still like 15 years old in a lot of ways, and they're needing someone to bring them to adulthood where they're able to have a mature relationship with a woman. Um, is that somewhat accurate of a lot of your clients?
Um, honestly, that's doesn't my clients are a little bit different than that. Um, my clients are often really accomplished CEOs or keynote speakers or VCs who are incredibly sought after in their jobs. But for whatever reason, they haven't been having any intimacy in their marriage, sometimes for 10 years, 20 years even. It's totally died. Their wife doesn't even want to talk about it. She gets angry when he brings it up. And they're also not having any non-sexual intimacy. Like the one man told me that for the past 20 years, the only reason he ever touched his wife was in order for it to lead to sex. So the idea of like flirting, courting, enjoying each other in the moment just for that thrill, that deliciousness itself is mostly absent from men's brains, especially if you're highly successful. If you've built a world-class business and a world-class career, you did that by being very driven, being very goal-oriented and like pushing things forward. And those things aren't going to work with your woman. The other type of men who come to work with me are men who have gone through like a very traumatic divorce, where maybe they were in a relationship that was abusive, their partner had maybe a mental disorder, and she may have insulted them or destroyed their confidence. And they were married for 20, 30 years and now they're single. They don't know how to date. They don't know how to find quality women. And their confidence in the bedroom is gone. So I help them find their power and confidence as a man again. And I love helping men with any sort of performance anxiety. So if you think you're not, doing as well as you want to be doing as a lover, I teach you all of like the tantric tips for how to actually deal with whatever's going on for your body if you feel like you can't rely on it anymore. And it's so much fun. It's so deep. It's so empowering. And then the third class of men who come to work with me are also usually very accomplished men who just can't seem to find a woman. They're like dating, they're not divorced, they're maybe younger, but sometimes there's bitterness because it's like, I don't know what women want today. All the women are ghosting me, or they won't give me feedback on how I'm showing up, or I just can't, all women are this or all women are that. And they're just having trouble knowing how to present themselves and how to find the high quality woman that they're looking for. So those are the types. Yeah.
Maybe you can be specific with some your methods of, I guess, reinstalling confidence in these men, and the specifics of what you actually coach to these guys. Like what are the things that you do that help them change from where they were to where they want to be, basically.
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a few things around that. Um, so confidence has many, many aspects. And the first thing that I investigate is, how do you treat yourself? Pretty much 100% of the clients that I work with realize that their inner critic is running the show. And so they are constantly beating themselves up, not feeling good enough. They're never allowing themselves to celebrate or to focus on what they are awesome at, because out of fear of being selfish or conceited or boastful or something like that, we have this like really misguided tendency in our culture that any amount of celebrating yourself is just bad and wrong. And so there's an epidemic of self-hatred, self-criticism. So that's the first thing that I assess for. And then the second thing in terms of confidence is, so in the tantric path, it's so empowering because what it says is radical acceptance of the truth of your moment-to-moment experience of life. So many of us think that we need to measure up to some perfection, some idealized, perfect version of us. And so we think we shouldn't feel this way, or I can't feel that, or we like pretend that's not going on. And so we're just shoving away and cutting off what's real for us. That creates like a false persona that requires a lot of energy to maintain and comes across as supremely like untrustworthy, like lack of congruence to women. So what I invite them to do is to just notice, start noticing. And it's like a whole practice. It took me years to learn to do this for myself too. Like, what is actually going on for you right now? And not just your thoughts about it, but your physical sensations in your body, your emotions. What is actually true for you right now? Not some idealized version of it. And when you start there, when you start with what's real, now we can really work, because then you can say, oh, what do I need? Like, what do I want to do with this energy if I'm feeling shame or anger? It's okay. Like, I respect my emotions. They're there for a good reason. But what do I want to do with them? And the third thing is that very often it's simply being able to be in relationship with a woman like me as a coach, who gives you unconditional positive regard, no matter how you're feeling or no matter how strange you think your desires are. And that brings a lot of confidence. So many men have told me that when they reveal their true deepest desires around sex and women and relating to me, that it's the first time they've ever been able to be open about that without being shamed. So those are three things that help with confidence. I mean, there's many more, but those are three examples.
Okay. um, so it sounds like you do a lot of coaching with men that are still in these kind of dead relationships. I mean, do you mostly encourage them to find a way to salvage those relationships, or do you find that you're more trying to help them, find a better relationship?
You know, I I can't know what's best from the outside. So really my work is about empowering them to get clarity on what is the best move for them. And usually what I love to do in my work is to say, when you do this process, you will know that you did everything you possibly could have done to connect with your wife. You will not have any doubts anymore. And then you can decide whether or not it's possible to save it after you've tried everything that there is to try.
So I gather most of these guys still wanted to be in those marriages. It wasn't that that the reason that you encourage them to make all these efforts to try everything, and then they know that they've exhausted all avenues. I mean, you only do that if you really want to stay there. I mean, if they really wanted out, underlying it all, I wouldn't think they'd go to that, those kind of efforts to revitalize the marriage.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I will say that, you use the words effort, and I think I use that word too, and exhausted all efforts, but this work is actually interesting and fun. So it's not like hard, so like, oh, this is so hard. I have to keep trying so hard. It's not like that. It's like, oh, I've been sort of pushing in this one way and it's not working. So instead of feeling frustrated, not knowing what to do, now I know what to do. And it's like an experiment. This is where my scientist comes in, where we're like, okay, we're going to experiment. You're going to try this, this, and this, and report back, and we'll see what happens. And so it's actually freeing and interesting instead of feeling stuck. And in my 10 years of doing this work, I've only had one man who made the decision that, okay, I can't do this anymore. And that was because his wife may have a personality disorder. I mean, I'm not a therapist, I don't diagnose those things, but it he was talking with his therapist and it seemed like, she seemed to indicate, okay, I think your wife may be suffering from this, and she just may be actually unable to ever meet you in the way that you really want to be met. And so, from there, he can decide, like, am I willing to live like that or not? In all the other cases, it's like a dance, right? Like imagine you as the man are leading a dance. If if you keep leading the same step over and over, she's going to follow in the same way over and over. But if you lead a new step, the dance has changed and she's going to follow you in a different way now. So that's what happens when you as the man start showing up differently. Then it creates a pattern break, and the your woman will be like, "Wait, what?" And it's like, "Oh, something different's happening now." Right? So then it allows her to express in a different way with you.
Okay. What about some of the other, I guess, more common challenges I think that men face? Things that uh, things, for example, like just they feel they're unattractive, they're overweight, they're too old, they're too short. All of these type of things. Do you have any specific tips for these type of things, or is it all just a matter of changing their whole uh, way of thinking about this?
Definitely the mindset shift, like you said, changing how you think about it has so much power. It's really very powerful. But what I will say is the reality is that it may limit your options if you have certain things. But on the other hand, if you really love yourself And you can start to change that inner voice that says, I'm not enough, I'm too old, I'm too fat, and be like, you know what? This is who I am. And sending yourself love, like really sending yourself love, getting as healthy as you can, as you're able to, right? So that you can show up like fully present and alive and vibrant. Then having that sweet vulnerability already puts you ahead of the game. Because so many women experience men as just completely defensive, trying to be manipulative or play games, and not being willing to introspect at all. So if you're like, you know what, I may be short, but I bet no one's ever made you laugh as much as I do. um, it, I think in everything like that we have inside of us, there's an opportunity. So what I would suggest is to ask, okay, what opportunities does this open to you? Like, if you're short, maybe go take stand-up comedy lessons. That'll put you way ahead of everyone else in the dating game. Do something bold. I mean, it's an opportunity for you to shine. And it's an opportunity for you to get off the apps where, let's face it, you are going to get filtered out by a lot of women with the height factor. But the dating apps suck anyway. So, like, get creative and go show up in places to meet women in person. I actually have a client right now who's shorter than I am. And but he's like a miracle man. He is constantly sending me connections from dating profiles. I mean, he is on the apps and he's quite short. He's shorter than most of the women, and he just constantly gets matched with super cute women all the time. And he's such a gentleman. He really has his heart on his sleeve. He's very present. He communicates well. He's just a super interesting man. So it is possible. I also have a client who his wife died when he was in his 70s. And he started dating. He had been married for like 50 years. 50
Wow.
years, he has grandchildren. He started dating, and he just put a message out there in a tantric community on Facebook that he was 75, had been studying Tantra, and wanted to meet a woman who's interested in exploring. And it was like immediately he met someone. And, they actually dated for a while, and then it didn't work. And then he kept looking, and friends kept introducing him to women. And one of them was a local woman who actually teaches in this realm. And now they're like teaching workshops together. It's his dream. He's like almost 80 now. So I think there's always an opportunity. Yes, I mean, the tantric approach is like, be real with like, yeah, this is hard. This is maybe going to make dating different for me. But it could also mean that I meet like a different kind of woman who's like more available for connection and going deep than men who are just like leading with abs or something like that. I don't know. Me personally, if a man leads with abs, I'm put off. I'm like, I don't trust that guy. Yeah.
Do you have any particular tips about how you suggest guys meet women today with what's going on in the world these days? It's not so easy. Online is is often seen as a very unusual. How can I put this? It's like on the one hand, the world is more connected, and yet on the other hand, we're more estranged from each other than ever before. Um, what do you think about online, I guess, and meeting people from that, or suggestions on how to do it, maybe even?
I think there are so many amazing ways to meet people today. There's even programs online where you can practice dating. You can get like a practice girlfriend for 6 months. You sign up for an online program, you join this community, and then you like practice dating. One of my friends runs that program. I would, for example, do like a longer term program that you're interested in that has an in-person component. For example, one of my clients did a 6-month program with a dominatrix named a dominatrix who was also a therapist. And so she was running this online program teaching conscious kink. And then they all met together, and had several series of sessions together, the whole group, to practice like consent and boundaries and sharing your mildest and wildest fantasies, things like that. And now, like, he has a whole community of people who share his interest in kink. Other things, they don't have to revolve around sexuality. It could be like even a meditation group or like your local jogging group. But or like, I don't know, maybe you want to study like more, learn more about trauma, or you want to learn more about, I don't know, maybe anything, right? Like even a particular kind of fishing. But just make sure that whatever group you're in, there's also women in it, right? Don't join a man only group. Although I do recommend joining men's groups. I'm actually going to start one in May. Uh, and there's men's groups all over the world where groups of men meet together. And very often, then you get known and respected by your fellow men, and then they refer women to you, right? It's like, it's fantastic to get referrals from your friends. And often, if you do like a weekend retreat of like a polarity workshop or a sacred masculine, sacred feminine, or a Tantra retreat, um, the men will do their work on their own and the women will do their work. And then they'll bring in the women to practice all these different skills and practices with the men. And then you've met this whole new community of people, again, who are interested, right, in the same thing that you were doing. Other things to do are like shibari workshops. Um, I mean, or
That's
it could be like
that
learning tea ceremony.
right.
Yeah.
Shibari, that's rope, of course.
Yes, right. So, I mean, it depends on where you live. Of course, in the Bay Area, there's everything, but in every city, there's underground communities, and then there's like your more mainstream communities. So it just needs to be something that you are actually authentically interested in, or that you can create an authentic interest in on your part. But I love like all these places where you learn something. You get together with a group of people and you learn something new. That's a great way.
Um, how do you deal much with, I guess, men that are looking for multiple partners? And how do you feel about that? It sounded like you had um, sort of gone through a phase where you were looking at sort of a very open-minded approach to all of this stuff. And I'm curious about what you think about that, and how you coach a guy who maybe comes to you and is looking for multiple partners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've experimented with every flavor of relating over the course of my life, the past 20, 25 years, and the course of my adult life. And, as a scientist, I was really curious about this when I sort of woke up out of the religious indoctrination around, what sex was supposed to look like, what relationships were supposed to look like. And we do know from researchers like Stephanie Kuntz in her book Marriage, A History, and other researchers that Homo sapiens, the ways that we have related, has been incredibly diverse over our history, and that one man and one woman is not at all the most common relationship arrangement. It everyone like the culture makes us think that it is today, but it's not at all. And so what I really believe in is the freedom for you to discover what works for you. Just this week, an article in the New York Times came out about a 20-person polycule. So that's 20 different people who are involved sexually with each other on the East Coast. And, they talked about like, how did they make that work? So I am not the sort of person who thinks that one thing is better or superior than another. Again, it's more about like, who are you and what is the truth of your heart? Right? That's not playing out some sort of like avoidant attachment or some sort of trauma response. But what, in the Bay Area, of course, there's so much freedom in creating relationship structures outside of the box. And I very much support that. So I think when men come wanting to explore open relating, it depends. Like, are they single at the moment and just wanting to date multiple women? If so, then that's one scenario, and it's fairly straightforward to coach someone through that because it just requires a lot of courage in terms of being really upfront with who you are and what you want. For example, I have a client who his wife passed away, and he had a lot of trauma around sexuality and relating, and he was not ready to have a primary partner. But he did want to have female companionship and intimacy. And actually, what he wanted to be a secondary. So he wanted to only date women who already had a primary partner and who were looking for a secondary. And he wanted to be able to have like a few different secondary relationships. But he was on Bumble, like filtering for women who were searching for a relationship, and he didn't say anything on his profile about what he wanted. So he was wasting his time going on all of these dates with women who were like, I want to text you every day. I want to be your one and only. This is a long-term thing right now. Let's move in. Let's get married. Right. And he was like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm only available to text twice a week. He's just slowly coming out of his shell, right? It's not an avoidant attachment thing. And so once he put on there what he was looking for, then he started attracting incredible women who were like self-aware, who were like, yeah, I already have a primary. I'm just looking for a secondary. I don't want to like be all up in your business every day. And then he started dating two of them. It's amazing. So if you're already in partnership and you're looking to open up your marriage, that's a whole other can of worms, right? So then lots of different things at play there. That would take a whole other conversation.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, if somebody wanted to follow up with you, learn more about what you offer in terms of coaching. I don't know if you have any products or you have uh, any events. Maybe you can tell people a little bit about what's available to follow up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am hosting a Tantra fundamentals workshop. It's just an evening workshop on May 11th in Berkeley. If any of you are in the Bay Area or you want to come in and meet me in person for that, it's the first of many. I'm creating a community here around like intentional Tantra, modern Tantra, and I'll teach you all about the deeper understanding of what it is, along with, energy practices and how to create a safe container with a woman so that you'll be able to take her deeper and do some more of the esoteric practices. And then also in May 7th, actually, I am launching my Passionate Relationship Mastermind for Men. So this is where I lead a group of men. It's a group program for men limited to 12 for 6 months. We meet 3 weeks every month, and it's a combination of embodiment, tantric teachings, and hot seat coaching. And there's also an in-person retreat in the Bay Area around August, September. And I really love my men's mastermind. The men who come to that, they've been incredible. They've been like astrophysicist, a landscape architect, computer scientist, all kinds of amazing men. And whether you're in a relationship and you just want to have better sex or rekindle the passion, or you're single and dating, the techniques are the same. And you guys learn a lot from each other, just watching the men support each other and share stories. Every single year I've run this, the men end up hanging out on their own outside of class. And then they even continue the meetings after the 6 months are over because they don't want to lose connection with each other. So I highly invite you to apply for that. It's application only. There's already been a spot taken. The early bird ends April 23rd. It's going to be super awesome. And I really want you to come out of it knowing exactly how to create the relationship of your dreams where you feel respected, desired, and deeply met on every level. Whether it's with the woman you're already with and now you're having great sex again, or you're dating and, last year there were several men who were dating and including the 70-year-old, and that's when he met this amazing woman. So yeah, those are two of the things coming up. And if you're like, I don't know about group, Jessica, but I do want to take advantage of this, I offer one-on-one coaching. You can, there's a year-long, a 6-month-long commitment, or you can do it month to month if you're like not sure and you just want to see how it goes. So you can go to jessicagold.com and find out all of those things there, jessicagold.com. And, follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. On Instagram, I'm at bliss.science. Bliss.science. Yeah, and that's what's coming up.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time with me this evening and introducing yourself to my viewers and my audience, and hopefully a few of them will be following up with you and I guess learning some of the insights that you've discovered in your life, and now that you share them with the people that come to see you. So I guess that will do it. Unless you have something else you wanted to add to this. Sounded like you're starting something.
No, I just want to say thank you so much. And really, for all of your viewers, I know perhaps you've been in a slightly different world of like exploring pickup in a certain way. And feel free to write in with questions if you want to know more about this other way of doing relating.
Very
I,
good.
I
Well,
love to hear from you. Yeah.
well, again, thanks very much, and I guess we'll just end the interview now. Thanks very much again, and we'll hopefully talk to you again soon.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.